Hello and welcome back to Outro, the show about shows on the Writer Albert Lanier channel. I am writer Albert Lanier. And we're back with another episode of Outro. As anyone who's followed this channel knows, or anyone who follows this knows, this is a show about shows and shows that I've been on. So every time I do an interview on a show, and every time that comes out or is about to come out, I do an episode of Outro. It's no different here. And the difference, there is a slight difference here with this episode in that the thumbnail that you will see for this episode actually is a picture from Reservoir Dogs. Normally, when I do the thumbnails for Outro, it's all radio or broadcast oriented photos, radio studio mics, production board, what have you. This one's a little different. And it's different because, as anybody who's aware of my recent interviews on shows knows, or is aware of even my social media or what knows, I have recently gone back to writing about movies. If you didn't know, I was a former, not I am a former film critic and reviewer. I used to be a film critic for about 8 years. I was a contributor to a film website called ain'titcoolnews.com. Oh, I think it was ain'titcool.com. But it's Ain't It Cool News. And so I was covering film festivals in my hometown for about 8 years. Prior to that, I was also covering film festivals as a journalist and as a writer, but for a newspaper. So I was doing it for a local newspaper or local newspapers. And so I did that for several years. So from about the late 90s to early 2000s, and then 2002 to 2010, I was a film critic and reviewer. I was a contributor to Ain't It Cool, and I was covering film festivals in Hawaii up until I decided to, at the time, called it take a break. And so I took a break from writing about film, from reviewing, from being a critic. And it's been, I think, close to 14 years since I took that break. So it's my return to film writing. And my return to film writing, my writing now can be seen at my brand new Substack. If you haven't seen the promos here, I have promos for it. Check them out. In fact, this episode of Outro deals with the show I recently was on, which I've been on before several times, called the Ochelli Effect. And they actually played one of the promos, I think the promo for Final Cut, which is my new film Substack. And so it was played there. So you could check out the promo for my brand new Substack, Final Cut, which is about movies, about film, right here on this channel. You can do it after this, obviously. But if you haven't heard it already, and of course, I was on the Ochelli Effect recently discussing my return to film writing and also my take on the state of film criticism or reviewing and my background in regards to film. I think a lot of people who are aware of me from my other interviews on podcasts and radio shows and talk shows basically kind of just see me as a journalist who covers a certain variety of topics. They may have heard me for a couple of years or a few years. I would sometimes analyze true crime cases. So they may know me from that. They may know me from interviews that I've given about such subjects as, for example, Danny Casolaro and the Octopus. I've done that a few times, and other subjects. But this is a kind of, I guess, for some people, a brand new lens to see me through, kind of a different prism to look at my work and who I am as a writer through. I think a lot of people aren't aware that I was somebody who reviewed movies and who also covered film festivals. I interviewed filmmakers. I went to screenings, of course, and did full scale reviews. film reviews. I did kind of the whole hog. I was primarily a film festival reviewer, is how I define myself. I was not a general subject or general release reviewer or critic because I really didn't have the time when I was a freelancer as a journalist. I had to cover other subjects and I had other work that I had to do. And I couldn't devote myself full time to film criticism. I reached a point in my career as a writer, as a journalist, where I would have liked to. I would have liked to have done this festival circuit across the country, and I would love to have toured that circuit and covered it as a reporter and as a journalist. But that really wasn't possible for me. I had to focus on the work that I had here in Hawaii, which is where I was primarily. I've lived in California and I've also lived in Washington State. And I've also attended film festivals there. I've gone to AFI in Los Angeles. I went there. I've gone to that festival, and I've gone to the Seattle Film Festival. I've gone to those festivals as regular film goer, not as a journalist or a writer. Um, and so this is, I think, a very different, again, I guess a different way for people who see me. I guess they're not used to that, but it's a part of my life. Certainly movies and films have been a part of my life as a writer. And the new Substack Final Cut marks my return to writing about movies, which is strangely enough something that I kind of decided in 2019. I kind of made the decision I wanted to come back, but it took me, I guess, 4 to 5 years, primarily because I've been retired from journalism and freelance writing since 2017. And ever since then, I'm not in a hurry. Time slowed down for me. So I think I was just thinking about this recently. When I was a journalist and a writer, I had to multitask all the time. I had to get things done. I had to really focus a lot and make sure everything in my life was taken care of. Not only the typical day-to-day things, but also my professional obligations, getting articles done, all of that. And so by the time I retired in 2017, I had far more time than I knew what to do with. And so I could take things very slow, very easy, and I had a smoother way of looking at life. So, by the way, hello to those watching. If there's anyone watching, I think there's one person watching. Hello to you. And so I had a kind of slower pace, which I wasn't used to. I was used to a faster pace, getting things done and being able to just multitask constantly because I felt I had to do that in order for my schedule to work out. And once I retired, my schedule became more, wider and open as opposed to lean and mean in the previous years, in the 22 years I was a journalist and a freelancer. And so that's probably the reason why I took so long for me to do this. But I was also, the other thing is, when it comes to projects, I also kind of focus on a project or two. I don't spend my time again multitasking and trying to get this done, that done, that done. I get sort of the basic things done and leave it at that. So I was writing a blog in 2019 for medium.com, which is still up. If you want to go take a look at it, you can go to medium.com/@thedoctor50 and read my blog, which was about media and issues in current events. So it was a different, whole different other animal. So it was a whole different other project I was engaged in. And so I thought about doing the film blog, but I decided not to do that. I liked writing a blog, but that was enough for me. And so when I returned to Substack in 2023, my other Substack, that is the week that is. When I returned to my other Substack and started writing articles, I thought, oh, I finally reached a point this year where after seeing about 3 movies in a row from streaming, going to a stream, because I didn't stream that much. Now I stream. Now I watch stuff on streaming a lot more. I decided I think it's time. Should just do this. So I set up my Substack Final Cut, and uh, it's available. You can go to allanier.substack.com to read my newsletter. There's already several pieces of content. My most recent content is an interview with an actress named Ali B. Very nice lady. Enjoyed talking to her. Vegas-based actress. And so you can go again to allanier.substack.com. I've been on the Ochelli Effect a number of times. It's one of my favorite shows to go on in terms of being interviewed, and I had a great time doing the show this time. And you can check that out. The Ochelli Effect is on YouTube. But I had a great time doing something I don't normally do, which is talking about a bit of my life and my background. And to be brutally honest, it's something that when you're a journalist, you're not really cut out to do anything like that. You're not really supposed to focus on you as an individual. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not terribly interested in talking about myself or my life. There are people who go on YouTube and all they do is talk about me, 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 me. And hey, if people are interested in you and that works, fine. I think people know my attitude from my other channel about YouTube, so I don't want to go into that so much here. But I had a great time on the Ochelli Effect talking about my background. I actually learned about filmmaking when I was a kid. I was about 12 or 13, and I went to a class in my local library. It was literally, I think, literally called movie making class. And it was taught by a guy who ran a video store, owned a video store in some other neighborhood. Why he was there, I don't know. But my background in regards to movies and film really came from learning about filmmaking. I wasn't one of these film nerds or film geeks. I mean, I guess I became a bit of a film geek. I was really a film buff when I became a teenager, when I became a high schooler and older. But I really wasn't into movies when I was a young kid. I liked what I liked, and I wanted to see it. If I didn't see it, I'd see it on TV or whatever. I was only interested in a movie that interested me. That was my attitude toward movies. I just wanted to watch movies. I didn't want to make movies. And it really wasn't until I took this course, which was I was 12 or 13, so it was the early 80s, like 82, 83, that I took this course at a local library. And that's when I learned about filmmaking. That's when I got interested in films with a capital F, right? As an expansive, wide subject. And it would have been great for me to become a filmmaker. Um, but I never got to be a filmmaker at my age, like a student filmmaker or a young filmmaker, because I didn't have a camera. I didn't have a video camera. I didn't have a film camera. My family wasn't into that stuff. And so I had no way of making movies. There weren't really programs for kids like me to make movies. Or it wasn't like today where you could just take your phone like this and you can go and make your own movie. I mean, if I had a cell phone back in 1982 and 83, I'd be making my own movies and I would have been a filmmaker. But what I found was that I transferred my not becoming a filmmaker allowed me to take my knowledge of film and I applied it in different areas. In high school, I was writing film reviews for my high school newspaper. And then once I went to college, and then once I got out of college for my bachelor's degree, I was actually going to film festivals when I was a teenager, when I started in high school, because the film festival in my hometown was actually free. So I got to see movies for free at a film festival. Um, and one of the things that I always say is my film education was two parts. The first was taking this film class when I was in middle school, when I was in the seventh grade. So that was like my undergrad. And so going to film festivals from the time I was high school to college was like grad school, because you got to see movies, you got to see filmmakers talk about movies. I got to meet filmmakers and talk to them. So I always kind of equate that to my film school. My film school was taking the course undergrad and then going to film festivals grad. And then I wound up becoming a freelance journalist and writer after I graduated from college. Um, so I was 24. And it was odd. That's when I went from going to film festivals as a regular person, as just a regular film goer, as a film lover, film buff, to becoming a freelance journalist and covering. So it was kind of an interesting transition, something I never thought I would do. I didn't predict that it would happen. I didn't expect that to happen. So yeah, my life's I don't really like to talk about every part of my life because I think people wouldn't be interested, and I'm not one of those people who wants to talk about himself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So this is kind of different for me to talk about my background in regards to films and filmmaking, and it was really the combination of learning filmmaking when I was a kid. When I was taking the film course at the library, I storyboarded and I had to work on other people's projects, boom mic, holding mics, and shooting B-roll, video at the time, which I hated the cameras at the time, having to look through the eyepiece. And I mean, I look at the cameras that are out now. That's the kind of stuff I wanted when I was a kid and learning about filmmaking, having screens and being able to. That would have saved me so much. That would have been so great. It would have saved me so much frustration because I hated looking through the eyepiece. I just hated it. Because I get tired having to stick that thing to my eye all the time. And those are heavy cameras too. Even if it's like tight, even if it's like on a tripod and you tie it down, still heavy things. But um, yeah, so I enjoyed talking about my background in regards to filmmaking, or learning about filmmaking really, and then eventually becoming a film critic, which I did in 2002, and I did that film. I was a film critic and reviewer from 2002 to 2010. So I advise you take a look. It's on YouTube. It's the Ochelli Effect, under my name, of course, Albert Lanier. Check it out on YouTube or check it out at Ochelli.com. That's Ochelli.com. Ochelli.com. So check it out there or check it out on YouTube. And be sure to also check out my Substack, Final Cut. Already has several, like I said, several pieces there, which can be found at allanier.substack.com. That's allanier.substack.com. And that's been this edition of Outro. And so, for those of you watching, this is the outro to Outro. Goodbye. And enjoy the movies if you watch movies on streaming. I guess, as they used to say on the critical shows, I'll see you at the movies. Bye, folks.